Hello, everyone, and welcome to SCORE Fairfield County's live webinar, I'm a Technology Expert, Ask Me Anything. I'm Tim Ryan, the webinar coordinator and a business mentor here at SCORE Fairfield County, and I'll be your host. Our presenter today is Matthew Krieger. More on Matt in just a minute. First, some brief information on SCORE. There's over 320 offices and 11,000 volunteers nationwide, and we're part of the Small Business Administration. SCORE Fairfield County has over 130 volunteers with a wide range of industry, process, and subject matter expertise. We offer 3 primary value-added services to small business owners. 1, free one-on-one counseling. 2, educational workshops and webinars. And 3, extensive resources on our website, including a network of subject matter experts at your disposal. SCORE puts on many webinars each month. Look for future events on our webinar calendar at fairfieldcounty.score.org. Hopefully you've come with questions today. Please use the chat window at any time during the presentation. It's located in the lower part of your screen. Our webinar will end at 1 p.m. to respect your time. The session is being recorded, and the link to the recording will be available at fairfieldcounty.score.org within the next couple of days. Now our speaker. Matthew Krieger is a technologist and executive with experience in IT, manufacturing, nonprofit, and publishing. He is VP of Tech at Cober and has held senior IT leadership roles. Matt is CTO of the SCORE Fairfield County chapter and is on the SCSU Computer Science Technology Advisory Board. Matt is chair of the Reader's Digest Partners for Site Foundation and is an advisor for cyber seniors. He frequently presents on topics of business and tech. Matt is founder of Whisper, a service allowing consumption of web content as high quality text to speech. Welcome, Matt. It's all yours.
Thanks, Tim. Can you hear me okay?
You sound great.
Super. Thanks for coming, everybody. As you know, this is less of a presentation and more of a discussion. Thank you all for anyone who sent in questions ahead of time. We appreciate that very much. We've taken those questions plus added some, and we have about 4 or 5 pages of questions, which we will pick based on your feedback. As Tim said, please feel free to put your questions into the chat window. And also you should indicate if there's any questions that you see on the screen that are of interest to you and that I should answer. So let me start with the security topic, which I think is a big deal to all of us. One of the questions I get all the time is, what makes a good password? I think it all comes down to length at the end of the day. One of the best password tips that I have heard and that I use myself is make your passwords long but easy to remember. And that means typically a passphrase. So for example, a password that might be reasonable is, I enjoy coffee in the morning, is a very secure password. It might be easy to remember, maybe a little hard to type, but I think you get the point. It's about length and first and foremost, and second, it is about memorability. Second thing, how do I better manage my passwords is a question that I get all the time. One of the problems with passwords is people try to remember them. And when they try to remember them, what they end up doing is they write them down, other people see them, or they have very basic passwords that they use across all websites. I recommend against this. It is very dangerous, for example, to use the same password on Amazon that you use on your email. If somebody gets your Amazon password, they now have your email password. How can you avoid these things in general and make remembering passwords and having good passwords not a problem? Well, the answer there is you use a password manager. There's many password manager tools. There's one called LastPass. There's one called 1Password. A password manager fundamentally is a lockbox for all of your passwords. There's one big password to get into the password manager, and then the password manager is responsible for not only holding your other passwords, but for creating them as well. So the password manager might automatically make a very long, very difficult to remember password on purpose, by the way, because you don't want to be remembering it or knowing it. And it will automatically send that password to your email website when you log on. So there's no need anymore to remember the actual password. The password manager does it all. All you have to remember is the big, long password that you use to open the password manager itself. I have seen many, many people get bitten by the password story, and I think password managers are a very good answer to that problem. Taking a break from security for a minute, I'm going to take a question that was sent in. What is a cookie, and why does every website bug me about them? So a cookie is a little piece of data that is sent by a website to you and that you send back to the website so that they know and remember who you are. When you go and log on to Amazon, it remembers who you were because you're sending it a cookie that it initially sent you that tells you who you are. So a cookie is a way of identifying you and other information to the website. Cookies have been around for 30 years, ever since the web was born, 25 years, and they're still used widely today. You'll notice when you go on a website today, almost every website bugs you about accepting their cookie policy. I find this highly annoying. Why did this happen? Well, they do this because consumer protection laws try to create a way for customers to know when their data is being shared and tracked. One of the side effects of using cookies is that websites know where you physically are, what geography you are in, what time zone you're in. They know what kind of browser you're using. They know what kind of computer you're using. They know your IP address. So all of this is data, which is sort of personal data. And the consumer protection laws that resulted in cookie warnings or cookie acceptance policies are a way of telling you, the user, that your data is being shared with the website that you're going to. We have a question that came in. Are password managers secure? I think the answer to the question is, all else being equal, if you use a password manager and let it do its job, which means you let it make your passwords and you let it remember your passwords, and if you have a good password for getting into the password manager, then password managers will in general be much more secure than not using one. And the reason for that is that at the end of the day, I think it is the simplest things that tend to create security vulnerabilities. It is the human things that make security vulnerabilities. Again, short passwords, writing them down, reusing them. Sure, there's lots of hacks in the cloud, but it is, again, the simplest things that create the most security vulnerabilities. So if you use a password manager the way it is intended to be used, yes, it will be much more secure compared to your other way of doing it. We received a question, what is multi-factor authentication and what is two-factor authentication? So when you go to a website and you enter a username and you enter a password, you are essentially providing, from your password point of view, one piece of information, your password. It is the secret that you are providing. It is much more secure to be able to provide additional information to prove who you are in addition to the password. And that's what multi-factor authentication is. It is the user proving to the website that they are who they say they are in multiple ways. Many of us use multi-factor authentication today with our banks. For example, when you go and log on to the bank, you put in a password, it sends you a text message with a code, you enter that code, and they let you in. That is two-factor authentication. Multi-factor authentication is just a generalization of that, because you can go 2, 3, 4-factor if you like. I recommend multi-factor authentication for almost anything you do online that is of any importance. Your bank, your email, and any of the other commerce that you do, anything related to money, any other websites related to security, how you pay your bills, whatever it is, implementing multiple factors makes the stealing of your information and the hacking of your accounts substantially more difficult by a hacker. The downside of multi-factor authentication or two-factor authentication is it creates an inconvenience. And there's attempts at solving this inconvenience. For example, today, if you have an iPhone and you encounter a screen that says, I will send you a text message with a code. Well, as you know, on your iPhone, the iPhone now presents you that code, and you can hit one tap and the code will be filled in. So technology attempts to make it easier. I think we've seen now in the last several years that the inconvenience, especially if you've been burned, is far worth it compared to the potential risk associated with a hack. Let's talk about 5G for a minute. We got a question, what is 5G and what is the big deal? Well, if you've been around long enough, there was 1G and 2G and 3G, and now most smartphones are on 4G. 4G, which stands for fourth generation, was a really big deal because 4G really allowed smartphones to flourish, and it allowed video to be played to remote devices all over. It allowed for chat applications. It essentially allowed for much of the mobile world that we are in today. 5G takes 4G to the next level. It gives you substantially higher speeds. It gives you better power usage. Everybody knows that with Wi-Fi on and the cell phone radio on, your battery is used more, so power management is a factor. It gives you lower latency. Latency is described as the amount of time between you sending information to a website and the website sending it back. It reduces that latency. Mobile broadband becomes a possibility now. Most of us get our home internet with wired cable connections. 5G has the possibility of eliminating our dependence on wires to connect and get high bandwidth applications like video. Another big deal is that 5G allows the collection and sending to the cloud of massive amounts of data on a real-time basis. An example would be many hospital devices, cars like Teslas, equipment from the utility company that is at your house. All of these devices, either today or tomorrow, will send lots and lots of data up into the cloud. And 5G helps because it allows the volume of data that you can send and the speed of data to be substantially greater than it is today. So that's the big deal about 5G. Let me skip back to security here for a minute. We got a question, what is a VPN and should I use one? A VPN is a virtual private network. What a VPN does is it ensures the security of the connection between you and your computer and your smartphone and whoever you're talking with on the other end. So what does security mean? Security means that people are unable to snoop on your data. It means that they're unable to steal your data. And it means that they're unable to do things like change the data and trick you into believing that your bank balance is X versus Y. What a VPN does is it creates an encrypted layer between your device and whoever you're talking to. There are free and paid VPN solutions today. There's a free popular VPN called Proton VPN, which you can run on your computer and you can run on your smartphone. The VPN will be on all of the time. And the benefit of having a VPN on all of the time is that the opportunities for people to sniff your personal information are reduced. One of the big vectors today for people to get hacked is going to a coffee shop, signing on to an open Wi-Fi with no encryption, and getting their data stolen. VPNs can help in situations like that. Same thing in the airport. We got a question. How can I send files that are too large for my email provider? Well, there's a lot of different ways. If you are using an iPhone, for example, and you try to email somebody a very, very large video file, the iPhone will say to you, this file is too big for email. Would you like me to send a link to the video instead? And that's one way to send the file without email. Anybody who uses Dropbox today or Google Drive today can also transfer large files outside of email. If you go into your Dropbox or if you go into your Google Drive, you can right-click on a file. You can say share. It'll generate a link. You send that link to the person you want to share with, and they'll be able to download files essentially of any size. We just got a question that is a good follow-up to the VPN question. With a free VPN, are the risks reduced or eliminated? The risks are never eliminated, whether or not you use a free VPN or a paid VPN. In fact, when it comes to information security, there is no such thing as absolutely secure. If a product or a company says that their product is 100% secure, it's simply not possible. What VPNs, paid or freed, what antivirus software, paid or freed, do is they reduce risk and they add layers of security. So what I mean by layers is, if you look at the White House, there's a fence. You have to get over the fence. If you get over the fence, you have to get past the dogs. If you get past the dogs, you have to get past the guys with guns, and so on and so forth. So what a VPN does, when you're using it with multi-factor, when you're using it with a password manager, all of these things create layers of defense that keep you more secure. One of the biggest areas, by the way, where security is lacking is human error, because we're human and we make errors. So having multiple layers of security are important. One more question, follow-up question someone asked is, are there any negatives to a VPN? Sure. They may slow your phone down a little bit. You may lose a little more battery. If you're paying for a VPN service, you have to remember to pay the bill. There's compromises to everything, but certainly the benefit, I think, outweighs those inconveniences. We received a question, what is the Internet of Things? So the Internet of Things refers to any device, literally, whether it is a computer, a smartphone, a sensor, a car, a heart monitor, a power meter that connects to the internet. So the Internet of Things refers to any device that is connected. It's estimated today that there's something like 25 billion connected devices. And that's the Internet of Things. When you're in the hospital, it is said that a hospital room might have 25 connected devices. This is going to explode in the number of connected devices over time. The reason the Internet of Things is important is because data sharing is important. The cloud is important. When you look at something like Tesla and all of the cars are reporting data back to Tesla in the cloud, that is considered Internet of Things. So any device connected is considered the Internet of Things. Jump around here. How do I get started in cryptocurrency? Let me preface this statement by saying that it is not investment advice. I'm speaking about the mechanics only. You know, Bitcoin is high, people get excited. Some people want to dip their toes in the water and try it out. How do you get started? It's very easy. You go to a Bitcoin exchange like Coinbase.com, you create an account, and it'll walk you through buying cryptocurrency like Bitcoin or Ethereum. You can buy $1 worth, you can buy $100 worth. But websites like Coinbase make it pretty straightforward. It is a similar experience to working with a brokerage site like E-Trade, but a little more technical. There's also many iPhone apps that allow you to buy cryptocurrency directly from the phone. For example, one called Voyager. There's another one called Abra. All of these let you create accounts and deposit US dollars and buy cryptocurrency with them. Somebody wrote in, how do I get my own domain name? And why should I get my own domain name? Well, you should do so if you're a small business person and you want to project a professional brand. And you want to have email that is branded with your own domain. It looks much more professional to have joe@yankeepainting.com than it does to have joesyankeepainting@gmail.com. How do you get your own domain? Pretty straightforward. You can go on the web to office365.com, and through Microsoft, you can buy a domain. You can go to G Suite, which is Google's answer. You can go to GoDaddy, and they will all walk you through buying your own domain name, which typically you pay for on an annual basis, $10 to $20, and they will walk you through the setup process. Someone wants to know whether the hyperdrive in Star Wars is faster or the warp drive in, this was a funny question. I felt I had to answer it. The Star Trek warp drive is substantially faster than the hyperdrive. If you learn nothing else today, that is the one to know. How do I know if an email is safe to open? Well, you sort of don't, but there are certain best practices to use to determine if an email is safe. Do you trust the sender? Do you recognize the company that it's from? Does the language and wording look professional? All of those things are indicators. Some people, particularly those who work for larger companies, have email systems that will warn you of an email that is coming from an external source because it is generally considered more trustworthy for your So for example, if you're working at a company, it's generally considered that emails from others in your company are safer than external emails, but not always. You should look for emails with attachments. Attachments are notorious for security vulnerabilities. If you receive an email with a zip file or an exe file, it is almost certainly bad news, and you should be wary of that. And if you have any questions and if you have any concerns, don't open it, because just by virtue of opening the email, you've exposed yourself. Another way to tell if an email is legitimate is because there's many spoofed emails out there, you know, social engineering attacks that look like they come from Bank of America, but it's really someone trying to steal your password. If you hover your mouse over the links in the email, even though the link on the screen says bankofamerica.com, when you hover over it, you know, it says Joe's hacking site.russia, then that's an indicator that the email is not safe. What's the difference between artificial intelligence and machine learning? Big question we hear a lot about both in the media. So artificial intelligence is sort of the broader concept of machines being smart. So the ultimate implementation of artificial intelligence would be machines that are able to think and process like a human being. And this is called general artificial intelligence. It is widely thought that this may be never achievable or potentially many, many, many years away. There's then narrower artificial intelligences, which let's say focus on certain problems like finding a disease or determining where the best place to drill for oil is. These are more narrower applications. Machine learning is a subset of artificial intelligence. Machine learning is around the notion that a computer can learn to do a better job. How many people, for example, have you been to a website and Google pops up a screen that says, in order to prove that you're a human and not a computer, we want you to click on all of the pictures that look like buses. Well, what's happening is when you're identifying buses to Google is you're now teaching Google, you're helping their machine learn what a bus looks like versus a car or versus a bird. I'll go back to a Tesla example again. Tesla's driving around, need to differentiate between a bicyclist in front of the car versus a bicycle that is mounted on the rack on the back of a car. That's a very easy problem for a human to distinguish. It's very, very difficult for computers to do that. And so machine learning is the process of training and helping a computer to better make those decisions on their own. That's why today you see in marketing, for example, there's a whole aspect of marketing called sentiment analysis, where a computer will look at comments from an individual and determine if they're expressing a positive or a negative sentiment about your product. That's done using machine learning. The IBM Watson computer that was the first computer to beat a human player in chess implemented techniques similarly. This is an interesting one. How can I monitor my home electric usage? I bought a product several years ago called Sense, S-E-N-S-E. I think it is sense.com. Sense plugs into your breaker panel. And interestingly, through machine learning, Sense tries to figure out what's the garage door opener, what's the microwave oven, what's the furnace, what's the hot water heater, and so on and so forth. And over time, it will hopefully learn what appliance is what, and it will show you where you end up spending your money. And you'll often be very surprised. And I used this tool a couple of years ago to prove to my HVAC, my air conditioning support guy, that the AC wasn't functioning properly because it was using 3 times as much energy as it was supposed to be. And this helped me do that. So there's a number of tools like this. They have smartphone apps. If you're interested in data, they're neat. Sense.com is one example. What's the difference between virtual reality and augmented reality? So virtual reality is the immersion of you as a human being in the world of computers. So you'll see people with virtual reality headsets that project you into a virtual world. Virtual reality is something that in concept has been around for, again, 30 years, and it's sort of slow moving in terms of its practical applications. There are major applications for virtual reality in learning, for example, pilot flight training, war simulations, medical, surgical training, gaming, computer games, and so on and so forth, those types of things. It's unclear yet what virtual reality applications will be practical on a day-to-day basis. Then there's augmented reality, which is sort of a hybrid where you're looking at the world, but your smart device is kind of layering on top information about that world. So Google has a product called, I think it's called Google Lens. If you point your smartphone at the Eiffel Tower, it will layer on top of that on the screen. It'll say, this is the Eiffel Tower. It's this high. It was built in this year, and it will give you all sorts of information about that. There's games. Many of you may have heard of Pokemon Go, which is a mobile game which essentially layers digital reality on top of a physical world. There are some interesting applications of augmented reality. I recently went to look at new flooring for my floor, and you can upload pictures of your room, and it will automatically lay the flooring on top of that photo and give you an augmented reality view of what your room would look like if you actually had their flooring. So that is an interesting application of that. We have a question. I'm creating an online pay-for-service portal. What? Okay, I'm not sure. Maybe somebody, James, if you could clarify that question, I can come back to that. We have another question. In iPads and iPhones, how do I keep and save pages from an email or from an online search? So what I think you're saying is that you visit a website and you see some interesting information and you want to save that or bookmark that for later. Lots of ways to do that. Whether you're on an Android device or an iPhone, there is typically an icon allowing you to share the data from the page that you're on. When you click share, there will be multiple options. One of them may say bookmark this page. One of them may say save to my note-taking app. One of them may say send to an application called Pocket, which is a reading list. So I think where you want to begin is the share menu, and both all iPhones and Android phones have share menus, and that is the gateway to answer that question. Let's see what else. Somebody said, how can I ensure the security of my clients who will book with me online? What is the most secure calendar program? And I have a Proton. Okay, so let's answer the first question. So again, let's be careful. You will not be able to ensure security. What you will be able to do is to do the best, most obvious, most important, responsible security protections that you can do. For example, when you go to a website today, you may see like a lock, a green lock on the address bar in some browsers. That green lock means that the website has what they call SSL security, which means that the traffic between you and the website is encrypted. If you have a website today that is your own and you don't have SSL, people are going to look at that and the browser is going to say, this is not secure, and it's going to scare your customers away. So one of the most basic things that you want to do is put SSL on your website, number one. Number two, you're going to want to think about, and I'll sort of expand this question in general to say, how do I, do better at keeping my client data secured? Well, you have to figure out where you're storing your data. Are you storing your client data on your local hard drive? Well, if you are, I would argue it's probably not too secure, because if you drop that hard drive, the data is gone. Are you storing the data on Dropbox? Well, that's probably better, because now at least it's protected from your local failures. And we sort of assume companies like Dropbox and Google have better infrastructures in place. So that's another way. You're going to want to make sure that your client's data is encrypted when it can be. For example, if you are a merchant and you take credit card data, you will have to adhere to what they call PCI. So these are a set of protections that or security measures you must meet in order to handle credit card data. You're going to want to make sure that customer data is backed up. You're going to want to know what the vendors of your data are doing. So for example, if you have advertising on your site, what are the advertisers doing with your customer data? You're going to want to know those things, and you're going to want to put those into a terms of service policy or a security policy on your website. Those are a couple examples. Carrie says, how can I protect a copyrighted document from being copied? You can't, because copywriting is not meant to prevent copying. It's meant to provide you with a remedy should someone copy your copyrighted work. You could put watermarks as a measure. So for example, you'll notice if you do an image search today on Google, many of the images that come up will be watermarked so that if you use that image, it will be more clear that the image is owned by somebody else. You can password protect documents. You can make access to documents limited use. You know, maybe they expire after a certain amount of time. There's all these things you can do to sort of reduce the likelihood that someone will copy the document. You certainly cannot eliminate it. So there are technical protections, and then there are legal protections. Some people use PDFs, for example. PDFs are, they can be encrypted, they can be password protected, they can be signed, meaning that you can prove who they're from. At the end of the day, people can take screenshots of things, and sometimes it's difficult to solve every problem. But again, it all comes down to layers. Someone asked, what is the best way to start up a call center? So where I would go there is I would look at voice over IP providers or cloud telephone providers. So voice over IP is a technology that lets you send voice over the internet. It's likely if you call a customer service line today at almost any company that it's going voice over IP. There are many, many voice over IP providers, the Vonage, Grasshopper, I'm drawing a blank on the, Verizon has its own. These are voice over IP cloud phone providers. I think gone are the days where, you will build your own call center and put people in it and build the technology. All of this is bought for a service in the cloud. Somebody asked if using passwords, this gets back to the password manager question. If I'm using passwords that are provided by a password management program, ones that you can't remember, do you have to update them on each device? So the answer is no. When you use a password manager service like LastPass or 1Password, you simply run the app on every device you have, and whatever the password is, it'll be available to you everywhere. So there will be no need to have a different password or remember it. That's all handled by the tool. Someone asked, what is a good way to receive payments online? Many, many ways to receive payments online. If you have, let's say, a website with GoDaddy or Square, they will provide you with their own commerce capability. They will have you connect to a bank account. They'll have you connect to PayPal. They'll provide all those interfaces natively to you. You can also go directly to services like PayPal or Stripe.com and they all have ways to allow you to directly take payments or donations on your website, and they all walk you through it. You'll connect a bank account. You'll specify payment rules. They'll provide you a little widget to put on your website, and off to the races you go. If you are a merchant that, let's say, physically takes credit cards, that's a slightly different story. You have to sign up with a merchant services provider who will give you a credit card reader and a scanner and allow you to take cards like that. If you are typically your bank will provide a service like that, or if you are you can go to Square. So if you go to square.com, you see those white terminals at many points of sale. You can get those terminals and credit card readers from square.com. They'll walk you through the process. They'll make you sign documents indicating that you're keeping data secure. Those are all easy ways to get started. Someone asked, another company owns the .com domain that I want. Should I consider a .biz, a .net, or the like? The answer is absolutely. And everybody, I think, at the beginning of their business journey should think about branding. But I would say that at the end of the day, whether you get the .com or not is probably far less important than whether you make a compelling product that people want, because they're going to get to you by Google anyway. Most people don't go to websites by typing in so-and-so.com. So while it looks nice and feels good to have a .com or a .co, I would argue that it is not necessary. You should, by the way, look, there are many, many other domain suffixes today that you can use. There's .app, there's .game, there's it's endless. You can look at what the possibilities are and find something. But I would argue that it will not be your most difficult branding problem. Someone thanked me for the warp drive question. Good. I'm glad that was helpful. What do I look for in a web hosting service? Lots of security questions. That's good. That ensures stability. I think maybe you mean security, I'm not sure, or maybe reliability of people accessing my digital services. They said, I'm creating an online pay for service portal. Oh, and I want to have lots of people and I want it to remain stable. Got it. So the best way to have a reliable website and a reliable service is to let somebody else worry about it. Somebody whose job it is to build big, reliable websites. So, for example, when you use a website hosting service like, again, example is Squarespace or Wix or many of the popular WordPress blog or content hosting sites that you go to, they are in the business of making sure that your website can handle the traffic. They're in the business of making sure that there's a basic level of security. It doesn't mean that you don't have to think about this at all. Clearly you do. And certainly if you are building a custom product that sits on the web, you will likely have to consult with, technical engineers and computer programmers to make that happen. But if you're primarily putting up a content site or a commerce site, then most of the time the providers will have provisions in place that will allow you to scale and have stability for your customers. Again, though, I would argue that probably those scale and stability related problems are not going to be the ones that you're facing in the beginning, but certainly it is a very relevant question regardless. What is a good practice to back up and secure online company data? Super. Let me see. Here we go. So the best way to protect from data loss is to have multiple copies of the data. The absolute best way is to have multiple copies of the data. I recommend 3 copies of the data. One of them could be, let's say, data on a local hard drive. One of them could be data that is replicated to a remote computer with Dropbox. A third could be data that you back up to the cloud. There are services like Backblaze or CrashPlan, which you sign up for on a monthly basis and your data is automatically backed up. The best way is multiple backups and backups that are automatic. A backup that you have to remember to do is very unreliable typically. So you're going to want to automate and you're going to want to create multiple copies. And this is something that many of the online backup operators do. So I use CrashPlan. I have it on multiple computers. It backs up files immediately after I edit them, and creates multiple copies in the cloud. If you are using a cloud-based Office service, for example, G Suite with Google Sheets, Google Docs, Google Slides, you can replicate that data locally. You can save a local copy of that data in the cloud, and that also gives you protection. I want to set up an effective platform for training presentations using Zoom and Facebook. How many PCs or devices do I need? Maybe the asker of that question could clarify. I'm not exactly sure what that means. Budley, if you could look at some of the pending questions that I haven't answered in the chat, let me know. Maybe if you could do that, and I'll go back to the slides and pick up where I left off. Let's do this one. What is ransomware? How can I protect against it? So ransomware is when a hacker puts a piece of malicious software on your computer that prevents you from getting to your data. They say, then if you want access to the data, you need to pay me so-and-so amount of money. And we've seen many, many stories in the news about this. Well, hackers, for example, will put ransomware on a hospital PC, and the hospital is forced to ante over the money, which may or may not get them access to their data. So how do you prevent this? Well, it goes back to the previous question. You back up your data. You create multiple copies of it. You save it and back it up frequently. Frequent backups are crucial. If you only back up once a week on a Sunday and you corrupt your data on a Tuesday or a Thursday, it's going to be tough because you're going to lose that much data. So the best way to do ransomware is multiple copies of the data. Make sure that you are running some form of antivirus software. There should be almost no computer without antivirus software. Make sure that your device is updated. If you are an iPhone user and you have a newer device, but you're still running an old version of iOS, recommend that you update. If you're still running on Windows 7, you're probably a ticking time bomb and you should upgrade to Windows 10. So keeping updated with your apps, keeping the security patches on also can keep you out of trouble with ransomware. TikTok. Is China spying on me with TikTok? Super interesting question. For those of you who don't know, TikTok is an incredibly addictive and viral short video service that is primarily driven and created by a Chinese organization, and I think in general it's known that Chinese corporations are under the thumb of the Chinese government. So while I wouldn't say that China is spying on some individual John Doe, they're certainly getting data on Americans on a large scale basis in terms of where you are and what you're doing and who you're with and how long you've been there. Can we quantify that risk? I don't know. Is it scary? I think it is. Should you not use TikTok? I'm not saying that, but you should certainly be aware and make your own decision. But certainly is it important to know that unlike the iPhone apps and Android apps that come out of companies in the US and Europe, for example, which have some data protection laws, TikTok in general is bound by no such laws, at least not until recently, because now there's an American presence with Oracle buying TikTok. We got a question. What does big data mean? I heard about big data in the news, but what is big data? So fundamentally, big data refers to the idea of doing analysis on ginormous amounts of data so better decisions can be made. I will go back to my example of a utility company, the electric utility that has a meter at your house, okay? So about 10 years ago or more, they started installing meters that would send your monthly usage to the utility company once a month. Big data basically says, send all of the data every second to the utility company, let them amass massive amounts of data and do analysis on that data to figure out how to reduce people's bills, how to increase people's bills, how to make their networks run better, and so on. We see big data uses in healthcare. We have algorithms that are trying to identify abnormalities that show in radiology images that even a radiologist can't see, but perhaps a computer can see. Prior to big data, it was generally considered that you would have a set of data and it would be in front of you on your computer, and you would ask certain questions of that data and try to get the answers. Well, big data kind of flips that on its head. So what big data says is sort of, instead of me asking questions to get answers, is big data says, give me even the questions I'm not thinking about and help me get insights to things I didn't even know were a concern. Help me find correlations. Help me find correlations between human activity and the weather. So it's really sort of inverting the model from saying I have a relatively small data set and I know what questions I want, to I have a massive data set and you throw machine learning algorithms at the data and come up with questions that you didn't even know were relevant, and as a result, answers that that you didn't know were important to have questions for. Microsoft tells me they are ending Windows Live Mail, which I love. I tried Windows 10 Mail, which is a problem. What do I recommend? Well, you can use Microsoft Outlook, for example. I'm guessing if you use Windows Live Mail, you probably have a live.com or a Hotmail address. You can use Outlook against that email. If you have an iOS device, you can use the built-in iOS mail app. If you're on a Mac or a PC, you can use a third-party mail client called Thunderbird. There are so many email client options available in the app stores that hopefully you will find one that you like. You can access your email through the browser. Most services, hotmail.com, for example, outlook.com, offer you access through the browser. I'm going to revisit Mary's question. Mary says she will be doing online training on Zoom and Facebook Live. How many devices do I need for a successful platform? So the good news about a service like Zoom is they worry about managing the volume. So when you have a Zoom training, whether you can support 10 people or 100 people or 1,000 people using that platform at the same time is really just a function of how much money you're willing to pay. It's not a function of how many devices you will need. Zoom, will handle that for you. Facebook will handle that for you in their live platform. YouTube, which has a live broadcasting platform, will handle that for you. I would say what you do have to worry about is on the devices that you will be doing the presenting from, you're going to want to have the best microphones, the best speakers, the best recording quality, because those are things that that the Facebooks and the Zooms can't handle for you. So in terms of having a successful platform, training providers and presenters are really investing in studios with good sound protection, backgrounds that are pleasing for the users to see, microphones that eliminate static, all of those things. Investing in good cameras, webcams is another as well. Let's see what else. Budley, are there any questions that I could target? I know we have only about 5 minutes left. Here's one. Is cloud data, somebody said, is cloud data automatically backed up? Super question. The answer is that you should not assume it is. I have an organization that uses QuickBooks for our accounting in the cloud. We had a question for them: is the data backed up, and how frequently? And it's important that you ask that question. So just because something is in the cloud does not mean that it is backed up. And if that is critical data to you, it is important to ask that question. Somebody asked, where can I learn to do so-and-so online or to take a course online? The good news about the internet today is there's a ton of high quality free content. Coursera, udemy.com, Khan Academy, OpenCourseWare. There are just so many LinkedIn Learning, Pluralsight for technical training. There are so many good quality services on the cloud. Just go to Google and you'll find. We got 2 minutes left. If there's any burning questions. Oh, let me speak 1 minute about the SolarWinds hack, which we've read about in the news. So what was the SolarWinds attack and why was it a big problem? So SolarWinds is a company that provides network monitoring software to businesses. There was a hack on the SolarWinds software, in which malicious software was put into the SolarWinds software. And as SolarWinds updated their software across their company, their clients, like happens when you download a new iPhone app, for example, that malware was then spread to their customers, and in turn, their customer systems became infected, and their security of that data was lost. Why does this matter to you, and what should you be thinking about? Well, it matters to you because it shows you, again, back to the security layering approach. You need to be up to date on your software. You need to have good passwords. You need to use a VPN. You need to have multi-factor authentication. You need to not write your passwords down and share them with people. It just shows you that the digital world is a fundamentally unsafe place, and it's up to everybody as an individual. What is a good trusted source for the info that I provided today? Wow, I don't know how to answer that question. But certainly you can download the presentation. Tim, do you want to do a wrap up?
Yes, thanks, Matt. That was great. Technology concerns are even more important these days. With COVID, I've seen a lot of small businesses pivoting, going to like paperless invoicing and emailing receipts to people, things like that, in response to customer demands. That was great. As a reminder, recording of this webinar is available within a couple of days on the fairfieldcounty.score.org website. Please check out our website for information on upcoming events. Again, SCORE offers free individual counseling, so please use the link on the screen or visit our website and click Request a Mentor. We are available for sessions via phone, email, or video. Also, please fill out your evaluations that have been sent during the webinar. On behalf of SCORE, I'd like to thank you all for attending today's SCORE live webinar. In closing today, a big thank you to Matt Krieger. Thanks, Matt.
Thank you. Thanks everybody for attending.